I can run a company of 300 people. I can create my online programs. I can create festivals around the world. I'm currently simultaneously writing 3 different books, but I'm able to juggle it because I practice what I preach.
Welcome to the Become a Writer Today podcast with Brian Collins. Here you'll find practical advice and interviews for all kinds of writers.
Most new authors focus on writing one book at any one time, and that's usually an approach I recommend. But there are those occasional authors who write 2 or even 3 books at once. Vishen Lakhiani, the CEO of online educational and personal development company Mindvalley, is one of those authors. He knows a thing or two about productivity and often cites key habits like meditation and reflecting on goals as key to his success. And that's something we talk about in this week's podcast interview. Reflecting on goals is something I like to consider too. At the time of recording this introduction, we're coming towards the final month of 2019. And normally during late November and December, I like to review and reflect on what I did during the year, what worked and what didn't work. And I'll cover all of that in a future podcast episode. One approach I've been following recently that's worked quite well is rather than considering the whole year, I like to break it down into quarters because a quarter or 3 months is much more manageable. And in fact, 3 months is long enough to write a first draft of a book, which is something I covered in a previous podcast episode. It's long enough to create and launch an online course, and it's long enough to start a new project like a podcast. On the other hand, it's not so long that the final goal can feel like it's miles and miles and miles away. In other words, if you set one goal for the entire year, it can feel like you're not making much progress because 12 months can just feel like a long time away. So typically what I like to do is pick one big goal for the quarter or the 3 months that I'm going to focus on, such as I'm going to write a first draft of my book, or I'm going to launch a podcast, or I'm going to launch an online course. And I'll focus on that goal every day for at least 30 or 60 minutes. And if I have time for all of the other items on my to-do list, that's fine too. I'll attend to those as well. But I'm always saying to myself, what can I do to advance this one particular goal first? This one goal represents my big rock for the quarter, and I'll put that big rock first before anything else. So some of my big rocks over the past few quarters or 3 months included freelance writing for Forbes. So I concentrated on writing as many posts as possible. So I'd have a lot of those in the bank. Writing the first draft of my book, This Is Working. Publishing the book, This Is Working, and getting some reviews and so on. Building up traffic to my website and hitting a certain target for subscribers to my email list. So all of those represented big rocks over the past year or year and a half. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to focus on next year during 2020, but I imagine it will involve some form of freelance writing or perhaps building up a presence on another social media network like Medium. And I'd also like to focus a little bit more on one of my online courses. Oddly enough, I like to use the same approach in my personal life too. So one big rock that took me through most of the summer was training for the Dublin City Marathon, which is something I've talked about in previous podcast episodes. I haven't picked a new personal goal or big rock just yet, but that's something I'll probably do during December. An example of a big rock personal goal from 2018 was moving house, because at the time my wife was expecting a baby and we didn't have enough space in our old house for 3 kids. So that big rock goal actually took up nearly 6 rather than 3 months. Whatever your approach to goal setting, I'd encourage you to think about what you want to achieve with your writing career. Do you want to hit a certain income level? Do you want to write for certain publications? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to build up a popular blog? Ask yourself what types of writing goals are important to you. Then I'd encourage you to break that down into steps that you can take each day and each week that will advance you towards that goal. Better yet, find metrics that you can track so you can hold yourself to account and figure out if you're actually making progress towards your goal. So for example, if I said to myself, I'm going to write a first draft by the 31st of March 2020, then I would break that down into a target word count for each month, each week, and each day. And then if I tracked my output each day, I could see how I was advancing towards completing the first draft by March 31st. Because at the end of the day, tracking yourself is a great way to hold yourself to account. And it's particularly important for creatives who perhaps, want to have that space and freedom to work on their manuscripts or on their writing, but who also want to avoid feeling like they're not making much progress and avoid procrastination. Now, one person who knows a lot about setting goals and a lot about how to get things done is the Malaysian-Indian entrepreneur, Vishen Lakhiani. He's the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, and his new book is about to come out. It's called The Buddha and the Badass. And while he was writing this book, he was actually working on 2 different books as well. So that really struck me as a completely different approach to writing. His company, Mindvalley, is well known within the personal development space. It provides online courses in topics like meditation, productivity, and of course, setting goals, which we've just talked about. I wanted to speak to Vishen because I was curious about how he finds time to run a business like Mindvalley, which has over 200 employees around the world, and why he's also writing a book. And in this interview, he explains why typical or Western approaches to setting goals just don't work and what he does instead. He also gets into how his meditation practice helps him become more productive and creative. And meditation is something we've talked about in previous podcast episodes, and it's something I find a lot of creative people have set time aside for. But Vishen's approach to meditation is a little bit different to anyone else I've spoken to. He also gets into why he decided to write all of those books at once and how he finds time for writing, running his business, and managing his employees and everything else that he does. But I started by asking Vishen to explain why he set up Mindvalley back in 2004 and what he wanted to achieve with his business.
So Mindvalley is an education company focused on what we would refer to as transformational education. Now, what this means is that we look at the education that regular school forgot, the education that actually makes you a better human being. This means education in mind, body, in soul, in creative thinking, in relationships, the things that truly make us human. So Mindvalley works with some of the world's top teachers in this genre, a lot of men and women who have published some of the best-selling books in the world, from people like Robin Sharma to Catherine Woodward Thomas to Neil Donald Walsh. And we work with them to create 30-day programs that transform an individual in different aspects of life. For example, it may help you become a better parent, or it may help you get fit, or it may help you tap into the powers of meditation and mindfulness. Now, what we are seeking to do is to build the world's foremost education platform for this genre of education.
If you don't mind me asking, there's a lot of online course providers today. So I've taken courses on the likes of Creative Live, LinkedIn Learning, and so on. So how does Mindvalley stand apart from those other platforms?
Well, if you look at any of those platforms, if you look at Creative Live, they have about 10,000 programs. You look at Udemy, they have about probably 50,000 programs. Mindvalley has 40 programs. That's it. We may stop at 100 programs. Now, here's the difference. When it comes to online learning, what really matters to people is not the price, because education has become really affordable. It's the time. If you want to become really good at something, it's the time investment that matters. We're not looking to create a library of 10,000 programs. We're looking to create the singular best program in every genre. So when you come to us, you know that every minute you spend, you're getting the best training in the best way from the top mind in the industry. For example, there are at least 100 programs out there on memory and speed learning. We produce the number 1 program in the world on that genre with the number 1 teacher, Jim Quick. It outsells pretty much all the other programs combined, and it delivers the best results. So Mindvalley is obsessed with creating the singular best program in every genre of human transformation. This is why we're only focused on 40 programs.
Could you give me an idea of how many students have gone through your courses over the years?
So the numbers vary because our company has gone through many evolutions. Mindvalley, as we know it right now, started in 2013. In 2013, we launched with 1,000 programs. And very soon, what we realized is that there's a massive quality difference, almost an exponential shift between the best programs and the average programs. And so in 2016, we decided to kill 95+% of all our programs and focus on 10. And you know what happened in 1 year? Those 10 programs got more students than the previous 900 plus programs combined. It showed that people cared about investing in the best and quality. It's sort of like the movie industry, right? If you look at movies in America, around 300 movies which are screened in cinemas, they basically, if you look at movies in America, there are maybe 30 to 40 movies out of like 1,000 that are produced every year. And those 30 to 40, they end up getting 99% of the attention. Now, the same thing is starting to happen with online courses. People know that it's a time investment. They want to invest in the best. Now, Mindvalley's current following is 10 million. We have 10 million people connected to us across all our different channels. This means everything from Instagram to YouTube to our podcast. We distribute content for free across all of these channels. 95% of this 10 million people take our content for free. 5% are the ones who pay for premium content. And it is through this 5% that we fund our entire media company.
I was just fascinated by what you said about focusing on the top 40 courses. Is that correct? And you kill 90% of your other courses.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a pretty bold decision to make. So how did you decide just to focus on those 10? And did you find it difficult to communicate that then to the rest of your team and get them on board?
Well, what happened was this, right? In 2016, I decided that we were going to change the way we ran as a company. We were going to ensure that every program that we brought on would be something that we tested on our own team, that I personally went through. And we decided that we were going to, I used to work at Microsoft. And in Microsoft, there was a terminology that we used called eat your own dog food. It meant that if you worked at Microsoft, you used Microsoft products, even if they were half-baked and even if they had bugs, because through using your own products, you improved them massively. So we started out as an online store selling 1,000-something programs. But then we decided, well, what if we only sold the programs that we truly loved, that I was truly going through? And that is what created the shift. 10 programs outsold 900 plus. Now, the other cool thing is, as our team started going through these programs, now we had, back then in 2016, we had about 150 employees. Our employee base transformed. People started losing weight. They started getting deep into meditation. They got so super excited about the changes they were going through. This in turn fueled us to be so dedicated to the company that we went through a massive transformation. We started growing as a business by over 50% year on year. And it really was a beautiful cycle. So to this day, we only produce one new program a month. That's it. In the next 12 months, we are producing 12 programs, but each of them is handcrafted to be the best in the world.
What would you say to an entrepreneur who's struggling to achieve the same level of focus or eating their own dog food, so to speak?
So I'd say we're approaching a world right now where there's so much variety and people want quality. Time becomes a most precious commodity. If I'm studying something online, I want to know it's the best. I want to know that every minute of that experience is going to transform me. Likewise, if I'm watching a movie, I want to watch the best movies because a movie is still a 2-hour investment of time. It's not about the $9.99 you spend downloading it on iTunes. It's about the 2 hours of your time, which is why quality and that dedication to aesthetic ability and transformation is so important here. If you're an entrepreneur, I think one of the key things you have to understand is that it's no longer just about money. We're approaching a world of increasing abundance. It's about making sure people get the best experience for every time spent. Even if they are in your restaurant, ensuring that the little details matter because time is that precious commodity today.
I would certainly agree with that. One thing that struck me when I look at the Mindvalley courses is they're more focused on softer skills rather than maybe more technical skills. So, for example, you're probably not going to learn Photoshop, but you are going to learn about, I think meditation was one course that stood out.
Exactly.
Was that a conscious choice?
That is an absolutely conscious choice. And the reason for that is because the gap in our education model today is in the soft skills. We know, for example, that if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur or if you want to be successful in work, for example, right? The most important thing that matters is not the skill, but the attitude. For example, there's numerous research in a concept called positivity quotient. There's even a book written about it called Positive Intelligence. And what they found is that the best performing teams and companies, there is one key determinant, and it is the positive intelligence of the team. And what this means is people's mindset, people's ratio of good emotions to negative emotions, such as stress or anxiety, people's ability to communicate with each other, which creates empathy and trust. All of these are soft skills. Our education system doesn't really focus on them. I mean, when was the last time you took a university program or a university course for empathy and got credit for it, or for positivity and got credit for it, or for mindfulness and got credit for it. I don't remember any such programs when I had my American education. Yet, numerous studies today show that this is what truly leads to success. But here's the special thing. It doesn't just lead to success at work. It leads to success at all areas of life. There's an obsession today with measuring success in terms of two metrics: the size of your paycheck and the size of your title. But this comes at a huge cost. It leads to broken families, broken homes, people overworked, people not getting enough sleep, people seeing their health get messed up, the obesity epidemic hitting us all. But when we measure success from a full 360 spectrum, and we look, so at Mindvalley looks at 12 different dimensions of success. We look at your health, we look at your parenting and your family, we look at your relationship, we look at your emotional states, we look at your character. When you look at success from 12 different dimensions, that's when the soft skills become even more important, because when you learn meditation, it doesn't just improve your ability at work, and there are numerous studies that show that now. It improves your marriage. It improves your relationship with your kids. It improves your well-being. Soft skills are the new hot trend in education. But again, I'm using the word trend liberally. I think this is going to be the key thing that truly matters in future education programs.
And do you think those soft skills are useful in the workplace?
100%. I just gave you a couple of studies on it. I can go further. If you read the book Happiness Advantage, or you read the book Positive Intelligence, all of them cite numerous studies. I'm happy to go into these studies if you want, from universities like Yale and Harvard, that show that it is these soft skills that truly lead to the success of an entrepreneur or a business.
So Mindvalley has a lot of courses by authors. And how do you approach turning an author's idea, and I know you're an author yourself, into a course?
So to understand that, you got to understand the difference between learning and transformation. When you read a book, you're typically going through a learning process. Learning means your brain is taking on more data, more facts. But the ironic thing about learning is that 24 hours after you put down a book, you will typically forget 80% of what you learned. Now, transformation is different. Transformation means an identity shift. It is a permanent shift in your world view that actually makes you a uniquely different person. Now, what Mindvalley seeks to do is we bring in transformational experienced designers who work with an author and take what would simply be data and facts and information, and we turn it into a 30-day curriculum that, through behavioral modification and other forms of education, actually transform the individual over 30 days. For example, a life book program transforms you into an individual that has a crystal clear vision of their life. A WildFit program transforms you into an individual who is acutely conscious about the food they put in their body. A Superbrain program transforms you into an individual who believes that you are hyper intelligent and have an incredible memory. So to go from learning to transformation, you got to break apart a program into 30 days, because transformation is a little bit slower. And you got to bring in behavioral shifts. You got to bring in practices such as, say, meditation or mindfulness or hypnotherapy. You got to bring in journaling, self-reflection, critical reflection, group work. It takes a little bit longer. But the good news is, once you transform, you stay at that level. You don't suddenly become wiser and then lose that wisdom, because you're going through a perspective shift that is permanent and irreversible.
Is 30 days enough time then? Like, why not 60 or 90 or longer?
So it depends on the program. So our program, WildFit, which is designed to basically change your relationship with food. It helps people get rid of a lot of the bad behaviors around food. And thus it is one of the most effective programs for health transformation and weight loss. That takes 90 days, because that's a tougher thing to shift. It takes 90 days. However, our speed reading program takes 30 days. And in our speed reading program, we've been measuring the reading speed of the students who go through it. Thousands have gone through it already, probably actually 10,000. We're seeing a 300% increase in reading speed in 30 days. So again, it depends on the program. Changing one's reading speed is easier than changing one's relationship to food, because when it comes to relationship to food, we are all badly programmed by advertising, by culture, and by, the marketing that you see when you walk into the average American grocery store.
You talked there about several thousand students going through the course. So some people who create online courses struggle with engagement. Students don't buy the course but don't necessarily log in or complete the materials. So what do you do at Mindvalley to get those kind of figures to encourage them?
So we're currently able to get engagement that is significantly better than traditional online courses. Right now, we're at about five times better. And that's a conservative estimate. We are aiming to get to 10 times better. Now, here's how we do it. Firstly, every course, so there's a formula, okay? The first step is this. Every program starts on a specific date. You have to begin on a specific date, and you join with a class of around 1,000 other students. Everyone starts together, goes through every day together, and they cross the finishing line together. That's step one, specific date commitment. Number two, everyone joins in a classroom and people are connected, if they so choose, on an online group. So the students actually motivate each other. For example, if you're going through our WildFit health transformation, students share pictures of how their body is changing. They share recipes. Students motivate each other. Now, the third thing is micro-learning. Rather than invest an hour a day, we ask you to invest 5 to 20 minutes a day. And that's really easy to do. You can do it in the morning. You can do it before going to bed. Anybody can carve out 5 to 20 minutes a day. Now, the fourth thing is the Mindvalley app. It pings you. It reminds you. It ensures that you are reminded to take your 5 to 20 minute lesson every single day. And the fifth thing is really, really, really good storytelling and really great teachers. If you have a boring teacher, people lose their interest. But if you have the type of teachers we do, people, men and women who have, many of them have written books that have sold tens of millions of copies. These teachers know how to engage an audience and they know how to make these ideas really sticky.
I like that. One of your courses, or should I say a quest, is the six phases of meditation quest.
Right.
And I understand it's based on an idea inside of your book. Could you talk a little bit about what the quest involves and how it relates to your...
Yeah, so the 6-phase meditation is a simple 8-day, it's an 8-day quest. It's actually available in the Mindvalley app. And the 6-phase meditation is basically redesigning meditation concepts based on modern science and designing it for the Western world. The problem in the West right now, and the reason why so many people start meditation but do not continue, is that the styles of meditation often espoused in the United States come from Eastern practices, which are more suitable for a lifestyle, honestly, in a village in India, where you don't have a career, you don't have WhatsApp, you don't have projects to work on. You can afford to spend an hour to 2 hours a day sitting under a tree meditating. Try doing that in modern America. So what we do in the 6th phase is we look at the science of meditation and we create 6 unique exercises that are stacked together that create the most transformative impact on your mind and your body and your soul in 20 to 25 minutes a day. Now, the 6th phase has gotten so effective that a lot of American celebrities have come out on their own in the press saying that they use it. 1 year ago, Billboard magazine interviewed Miguel, the R&B pop star, because he apparently meditates before going on stage. And when they asked him, what meditation style do you use? He said, the 6th phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani. Likewise, just last month, NFL Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez, in another interview, just casually mentioned that one of the ways he got so good on the field is through the 6th phase meditation. A lot of celebrities have been endorsing it, and it's been blowing up like crazy.
So that's something you talk about, I think, in your book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And I know you've another book coming out shortly. So I'm just wondering, how do you balance finding time for writing books like these with building up Mindvalley?
Well, I use the tools of Mindvalley to manage my time. For example, one of the programs that we have in Mindvalley is a program on flow by Stephen Kotler. He's the grandmaster of flow. And flow is basically being able to put yourself in these hyper-productive states so you do better at work and at life. So I take our own programs. I learn to get into these flow states. I learn to manage overwhelm through our mindfulness and our meditation programs. And this allows me to be hyper productive at what I do. So I can run a company of 300 people. I can create my online programs. I can create festivals around the world. I'm currently simultaneously writing 3 different books, but I'm able to juggle it because I practice what I preach. I go through Mindvalley programs and I learn how to be hyper creative, how to be in flow, and how to deal with complexity in an elegant way without breaking down.
You're writing 3 books at once. Wow, that's impressive. It sounds like you're quite advanced with your strategies for productivity and entering a state of flow. But could you give some tips for somebody who's maybe not quite as far along in their journey as you are, and how they can, increase their productivity?
Well, the first thing to understand is it doesn't take a lot of time. What it takes are the right practices to be able to do it diligently. So, for example, I'm super conscious about what I eat. Today, we know that food is medicine, and the right food actually magnifies your cognitive ability. It increases your energy. It causes you to stay in shape. It increases your focus, and it actually shifts your emotional states. People don't understand that about food. People still buy into a bullshit calorie in, calorie out philosophy, and they think that food's only impact is on your weight. So when you understand that you can actually change your thinking, your creativity, your emotional states with the foods you eat, you gain a superpower. So that's one, being super conscious about what you eat. Number 2, being super conscious about how you exercise. I spend only 45 minutes a week in exercise, but I am incredibly healthy and ripped and score very well on a lot of different health markers. That's because the style of exercise I do is scientifically studied and hyper optimal. For example, high intensity interval training, as well as super slow strength training. These are exercise modalities that have proven to give you the best results in the least amount of time. So I'm really conscious about my exercise routines. Now, the third thing is meditation. I don't do regular meditation. I meditate for between 10 to 30 minutes a day, but I use the 6-phase meditation. And so I get the incredible benefits of the 6-phase in very little time. Those 3 things itself, food, exercise, meditation, allow me to function at my peak. And when I put all of those together, it's maybe at its most half an hour to 35 minutes a day.
I agree with you with meditation and food, and I'm definitely interested in how you combine exercise into 45 minutes. So perhaps that's something I'll look at in one of the courses. But what about setting goals for 90 days or 180 days or 365 days? Like if you're working on 3 books and building up a company, you have many nights.
But the reason why modern goal setting doesn't often work is that we set goals not based on what truly matters to us, but we often set goals based on what society trains us to believe is normal, is right, and is respectful. So many people set goals to get into a career or to get a certain amount of money, only to attain that goal and realize that they're miserable. So the Mindvalley approach to goal setting actually comes from Lifebook. Lifebook was a company in Chicago that we currently license their methodology. And Lifebook looks at goal setting from 12 different dimensions of being. And they make you look at goals that come from within. So not what your parents or your society or your school teachers or your fathers or your mothers or your preachers say you need to do and be and have, but what your soul, your intuition, your inner voice tells you need to do, to be, and to have. And this creates a much healthier way of approaching goals. So when you take Lifebook, what happens is you end up with almost 100-page book with a vision for your entire life in 12 categories. If I were to show you my 100-page book, you will see how exquisite, clear, and specific it is. I have deliberate goals for how I show up as a father, how I show up as a man, how I treat my body, how I run my company, how I start my morning, how many books I want to accomplish and release, and by when. And so when you have that level of clarity in your life, you cannot help but be productive towards that outcome. So again, the clarity is one thing, but the second thing that Lifebook makes you do is to put in place the right strategies to get there. And now it's just a question of waking up every day, excited about your future, and doing the things that you determine you are going to do to get there. It's vision plus strategy.
And do you track those with metrics?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things you do is you would take a 3-year goal and you would break it down into 1 year, 1 quarter, and weekly. So for example, I know that my goal is to get 10 New York Times bestsellers and to sell 50 million books by the year 2049. So I've broken that down. That's a really long-term goal. It's a 30-year goal. I've broken that down into how many books I have to release every few years and how successful each book needs to be. And I further break that down into how I invest in my knowledge and training as a writer.
I like that. That could be taking courses or improving marketing skills and so on. I'm just curious then, one last question. What's your ideal early morning routine these days?
So my ideal early morning routine is I wake up in the morning, I do the 6 phase meditation. I then would exercise. Depending on the day, I have a different type of exercise. What I love most is super slow strength training. That's it's starting to get really popular, and it's an exercise model that creates maximum strength increase in as little time as possible, and it really keeps you young. Now, the third thing I do is I look at breakfast, and I either have breakfast with my kids, or I have a shake just by myself, or I practice intermittent fasting, which means no breakfast. The next thing I do is I listen to a Mindvalley program, or I listen to a podcast, often as I'm driving to work. So I continue my self-education during my commute. The fifth thing that I do is I write or I journal. So when I put all of these together, that becomes my morning routine.
Sounds like you're living the principles that you talked about there earlier. So I know people can find Mindvalley on mindvalley.com, but where would you recommend they start?
So the best way to start, what I think might be a really good way, is to actually follow me on Instagram. I kind of act as a tour guide and give people a full view of everything in the Mindvalley ecosystem. And my Instagram is simply @Vishen.
Okay. And what about your new book, Vishen? When is that out?
The book is out May 2020. The current title for the book is The Buddha and the Badass.
Oh, wow. That's a great title. Okay. So people should follow you on Instagram to find out about the book as well.
Yeah, just @Vishen.
Well, it was great to talk to you today, Vishen.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. If you did, please leave a rating on the iTunes store. And if you want to accomplish more with your writing, please visit becomeawritertoday.com/join and I'll send you a free email course. Thanks for listening.